Welcome to the Kahler Podcast, episode 4. This one is all about the Spyder. But first, some viewer comments. You ready, Gary?
I'm ready. Let's hear them.
6 Ledges 5474 says, "Hey, I love the podcast. I wanted to ask whether it's worth carving out the cavity for the Kahler." Yes.
Well, yes. Would that be a cam bridge or a fulcrum?
You know, that is exactly what I was thinking. There are a couple different ways that you could interpret this question. I think the way that we should interpret it is if you were to retrofit a cam onto a Strat, is it worth it?
Well, let me put it this way. We have the template. If you know how to use a router, then fine. If you don't, please don't do it yourself.
Something that I'll say about the cam is that if you're going to retrofit one of the cam bridges, be it a hybrid or a professional, they're both the exact same footprint, into a Strat, if you're going to modify it like that, you're barely taking any wood out at all.
Well, you only take it out of the top.
And you've already got this huge chunk taken out of the back, which is fine. Every time that I put a cam bridge on something, it feels like it enhances the tone to me.
We make fulcrums. We make
vintage 6-hole stuff.
We make all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's okay. You can have your choice here.
Paul Shepard, 2289, says, "Enjoying the cast. 2 questions. Can you discuss the rangeability of adjusting the field tension of one or more of your systems, which is a very personal choice, and I think important research for potential buyers considering your units? After watching episode 2 and the discussion of the Auto-latch, I wondered the following. My preference as a performing guitarist would be to have a trem that can be locked easily between songs. I don't need the immediate speed of something like the Auto-latch in the middle of the song, but I wouldn't spend the time to pull out an Allen key between songs. This innovation might allow me to gig with one less guitar. Thank you so much for putting the series together."
Okay.
Paul.
I got respect for what he says.
Yeah.
I think I understand what he's saying. All you got to do is put the bar down and it locks off.
Absolutely.
And you're ready for the next song. Now, you got the fine tuning right there. Just fine tune it up. All these pros know how to do that in a few seconds.
Yeah.
And you're back in tune, and you got a fixed bridge and ready to go with the best in tunist, the best harmonics, the best of everything. And then when you want to do your gymnastics, take it off and go to it.
The way that I like to describe it is it's the greatest accessory I never knew that I needed, because until I actually used one, I just thought, well, I've worked really hard on my technique and I don't really feel like I need this, but it'll be a neat little curiosity, and I'll put it on a guitar and I'll be like, isn't this cute? And then I played the thing and I realized that it was like, my rock solid technique isn't quite as rock solid as I thought it was.
Strings are simply going to stretch, particularly if you pull up on them, even when you're just manipulating them every which way. It depends on how you hear it.
You know what? If you want to use it to lock in between songs, that's fine. But it honestly, it's just like I've got mine set up to where I can just go flick with my finger, and it's engaged.
You're going to feel more vibration.
Yes.
When it's locked, and that's one thing about any floating bridge. Will take a little of that away, and when you lock it, you will feel the difference in the vibration. Therefore, with the fine tunings, you can go directly back into exact in tunus as you hear it, and you're going to hear the harmonic structure.
When you engage this thing, you can really feel the transfer of vibration. It instead of being killed by the springs, it's just traveling right through that metal piece. Okay, now there was the beginning part of this, though, too, which was, can you discuss the rangeability of the field tension of one or more of your systems? Which, okay, there are so many answers to this. And so if you were to use one of the fulcrums, let's say a Steeler, if you are somebody who likes a light feel like me, 2 springs, balance it out, works like a champ. My favorite bridge that I have. If you want it to be a little more traditional, 3 springs, and that's great. You can go all the way up to 5 and make it stiff. So it can be as light or as stiff as you want it. Now, that's just the Steeler. And then we get into the cam bridges. They feel extremely light on purpose, right? But if you want your cam bridge to feel like a fulcrum, you can put the heavy springs on, and it completely transforms the feel of that cam bridge.
You can also do the heavy arm if you like a 1/4-inch arm
Yes.
with a 1032 on it. And if you're used to playing a fulcrum bridge and you want that heavy feel, you can get that, do heavy springs, put on the 1/4-inch 32 arm that has no tip. It has no brass tip on the end of it. Looks, that kind of thing, and go for it.
Yeah, now the professionals even have a third spring option if you want. So you can make it extra stiff, or you can leave it as it comes straight out of the box, and it's nice and light. But that Jeff Hanneman ESP right behind you, I mean, that was Jeff's whole thing, right? He liked the heavy springs, and
I don't remember exactly what set he was using, but I do know that Jerry Cantrell likes that lighter feel, and we don't want to misjudge it here. You can go from a light to sort of a medium feel. You can't get that 18-wheeler feel, however, out of a cam unless you go to a 1/4-inch arm and heavy springs and heavier strings, whatever you want to do there.
The cam bridge, right out of the box, it is just about the most lightning fast, like speed shifting in your Ferrari kind of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like a sports car compared to a fulcrum, although we sell both.
Personal side note, I'll probably cut this out. I feel so fortunate that I have the ability, because I'm here, to be able to, just basically go, well, I haven't tried this yet, so I'll grab these springs and these strings and stuff like that. So I'm doing the research for you guys. If I find something that won't work, I'll go straight to Gary and we'll make it work. Scott C. says, keep them coming, guys. I always thought Charvel and Jackson should have split, as Charvel bolt-on hot rod muscle cars and Jackson should be only neck-through luxury model. Wow, thanks for reminding me of Shark Island. Cool band. I appreciate that Lita and Kerry stayed with Kahler even when many jumped ship. I also saw an interview with Adrian Vandenberg, and he acted like he couldn't get Kahlers for his new Peavey. Did they even inquire about it? I know that the Vandenberg was happening, the Series 3, before you and I started talking. Did they ever ask you if you had a...
I don't recall them inquiring. Our relationship with Peavey is good, and all I can say, Harley Peavey being a very good friend of mine as I look at it, and I'm sure that if they want, they'll be in touch with us.
The Vandenberg, so, they're on Series 3 right now. The first one came with Killer. The second one came with the Spyder. So to me, it would be really cool if this one came with a Steeler. Well, maybe we can get one and put a Steeler on it, and there'll at least be one.
That'd be great.
I think so.
If anybody from the company is listening, we'll certainly do that. Just give me a call. And
Garrett Boomerbender. I love the name. I'm Gen X, but you know what? I love that Boomerbender. It's worth noting Chris Poland from Megadeth worked at BC Rich, and he routed Jeff's Les Paul for a Kahler. That is worth noting. So Chris Poland from Megadeth is the guy who, while he was working at BC Rich under Neil Moser's watchful eye, put the Kahler 2300 on Jeff Hanneman's Les Paul, not a 2200, a 2300, which was something that that is worth noting. And I actually asked Neil about it. I was like, why a 2300? How did he figure out? How did you show him how? And all Neil could say was, Chris is a smart guy. I'm sure he had no problem figuring it out.
Well, he's putting a flat mount on there.
Yeah.
And that's different, but there you got neck angle. I haven't seen how they did it.
I looked immediately thereafter, and so he's got like kind of an interesting little plate that he made. Then on one of Kerry King's guitars from the same exact time, there was a Kahler mounted on it with the same exact plate.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure that it's something that he came up with. And Chris Poland, later he played for Megadeth, so we're talking about somebody who's a very talented player as well as a luthier and everything. And
There's one other thing. He makes good choices.
He does make good choices. That is so important in this day and age. Do you remember if Chris Poland played Kahlers when he was with Megadeth?
I can't tell you that. I don't know.
Now, I know that, who was his, Glenn Drover, was when he was with Megadeth. He played a Kahler.
He always wanted a special arm made, and
Yeah.
I'd meet him behind stage sometimes, and with my arm bender, and we would make something very special and custom for him.
I've just recently started bending arms with the arm bender, and that stuff's like crack. You just want to keep on bending arms, you know. I keep on going like, oh, this one's just maybe I can do better next time. Mr. Prophet 9127 said, you mentioned some awesome guitar companies that used Kahlers. How about Hondo guitars? There were ads for several promoting Kahler, and they also made a bass with a trem. Now, I happen to know that Gary could tell you plenty about Hondo guitars, so knock yourself out, Gary.
Hondo guitars is very special. They have special, price points and that type of thing. And the two most important people, there was Jerry Freed, super sales manager, and Tommy Moore owned the company, and I've had a lot of experience with Tommy Moore and Jerry Freed. Particularly Tommy Moore, I think a lot of people don't know this, but he was a fighter pilot during the Vietnam deal, but he was stationed in Japan. A very special kind of CEO, and he hired Jerry Freed from another industry, and Jerry learned all about guitars and everything else. And unfortunately, Jerry passed a few years back. It was Jerry Freed and Tommy Moore that bought Jackson of IMC, and then IMC sold to Fender.
That famous picture that we opened up episode 3 with Gary and Grover, Gary looking like he's about to come over the table at Grover, and Bernie Rico's just got that cigarette dangling. Yeah, that was taken by Jerry Freed, right?
It was taken by Jerry Freed. Yeah.
Well, Tommy Moore just sat there with his cowboy boots up on the bar, just enjoying the spectacle that he created. At Hail Kings, question: why is it that basses with a trem don't require a locking nut / string lock? By the way, Joey DeMeo has been playing a 2300 on his piccolo bass for a couple of decades. Yeah. Ironically enough, Joey DeMeo, one of the founding members of Man-O-War. Michelangelo is currently playing guitar for Man-O-War, but I know that Schenkel used to.
Absolutely.
So Kahler's got a little bit of a lineage with the band Man-O-War.
Let's talk about David Schenkel for a minute.
Okay.
A very good friend of ours. We make some special stuff for him, and of course he's with a guitar company, and we wish him the best on that. And always enjoy talking to David.
I cannot wait to meet David Schenkel.
Yes.
Everything that you tell me makes me think that he and I are probably going to put hands on our heads and run into the walls laughing like idiots.
I'll tell you what, he has a lot to say, and he's a big personality, let's put it that way. And that's great. Now, about Man-O-War and the bass playing, I don't know a lot about that. And so we'll have to research that and find out more about that piccolo bass.
Christopher Huff, 3123, says, I have an 83 BC Rich Warlock with Kahler that my mom bought for me new in 1984. Wow, nice, Mom. I remember the strings for Kahlers that had some kind of black reinforcement at the ball end. I just happen to have a set of special Kahler strings. Now, these were made for you by Diodario, right?
Yeah, they're good friends of ours. Diodario, great company. And what we did is it's more than having a dark end on it.
Right.
It also has a soldered on the windings. So the windings would not stretch. All windings do stretch more than the rest of it, more than you believe, because they go around that ball, and if you're pulling up on that string, it's going to compact the winding. So we wanted to stop that, so we just soldered it. And I might say that Diodario did a great job of putting in the tooling to do that.
You know, I would really love to see these strings being made again.
Well, we could do that. You know, it would be nice if people would email us and let us know. Hey, would you like to see us bring that back? Because we can do that.
D-Rock 1779. God, that sounds like a radio station. D-Rock 1779. Leave it there and rip the knob off. D-Rock 1779 says, this was the exact kind of thing I was looking for in the podcast. Thanks, guys. Episode 3, where we basically just talked about all the involvement with the different notable people. That was just scratching the surface.
As you know, we've got file drawers here full of pictures of all different kinds. But some of the most important ones you may not consider, may not necessarily be all the professionals to play this stuff, but how about the professionals that work the machines?
Yeah.
And those folks, I mean, the engineers behind the thing, the machine operators, people that can program and make the tooling for the machine centers.
Danny Louvier 3766 says, I love listening to Gary speak about the people who have worked with him. It's obvious how much he cares. One thing that I really appreciate about working here and working with Gary is that I feel completely and totally free to be myself. There are so many stories about, God, there's one I want to tell so bad about the paycheck cashing scam. We can't tell that one though, but I'll tell. I wish I could tell you that one. I really do.
Well, there's so many. Over the years, it's been almost 50 years I've been in this business. But what I've learned is this: any business comes back to that three-legged stool again. You got the manufacturing, all kinds of expertise in the manufacturing, and nobody ever sees it. The engineer, the inventor. First of all, somebody's got to have an idea, and that took them years to do it. That's fine. But if you don't develop that idea, and nobody ever sees it, and it becomes a big fat zero. So who developed it? Who did the tooling? Who took it off the engineering paper and said that? Who put up the money to make that work? I can tell you we got hundreds of failed projects around here. All I can say to that, it takes a whole team of people. We're trying to make really good stuff and stand behind it. We have parts for at least 90% of the stuff, and it's American. That's the way I say it. Got to do something about the homeless as well out there. We need more American CEOs standing up and say, by God, the 4th of July is coming up here, and we better be thankful we have a country.
Actually, funny enough, 4th of July, my favorite holiday, most people say Christmas or Halloween. My favorite holiday is the 4th of July, and it's my favorite holiday because I was 6 years old in 1976, the bicentennial. You remember the bicentennial?
Of course.
That wasn't a 1-year party. That was a 2-year party where everything was red, white, and blue, and for 2 years, everybody got along, and it was so awesome, and that is why the 4th of July is my favorite holiday.
I would have been about 30 years older than you, so whatever age you were. Yeah. But in any case, I remember that, and, we have another one coming up real soon, and this might be the most important 4th of July ever. And although we don't get into politics here, everybody to their own. There
is one thing that I want to say about this particular comment. I know Danny. Danny is the husband of the woman who was my dog sitter, and so these people would watch my dogs when I would go offshore. And it just, these two are like family to me, Danny and his wife, Lisa. Okay. And when I went and I picked the dogs up for the last time and everything, we went and sat on the back porch and had a great big, long, 2-hour conversation about, I'm so sorry because I'm leaving and I know that I pay you guys a lot of money to watch my dogs, and that's just going to vanish. And, they love you, and I love the fact that I know that they're taken care of and all this other stuff. And they both just looked at me and said, we're so happy for you, and we're so excited for you to go to Las Vegas and make a difference. So, Danny, thank you. for all that, and I still owe them big. Today's episode is all about the Kahler Spyder, which came out in the late 80s. What would you say, 88?
It was more the middle to the late 80s, I think.
I don't think that I really noticed any until probably somewhere around 88, 89, but maybe as early as 87.
Well, whenever the HM Fender Strat came out.
Great guitar. I have one right over here. Basically, this is what we remember these things from. I love playing this guitar. I love this guitar. This is one of the ones that says that it's made in the U.S. I would guess probably it's more like it was made by Fujigen and then assembled in the U.S. So this is the classic Spyder, and it's one of the early runs that doesn't have any of the slots in any of the nuts or anything like that. And because it's a Fender one, it doesn't have the extra screws. The Spyder was pretty much made for Fender, correct?
It was. Primarily, it was built for Fender and later on, I think, Peavey as well. But many other smaller manufacturers also used it.
So while the Steeler came out after the Spyder and the Killer were kind of at the same time, and I'm pretty sure that everybody's sick to death of hearing me talk about a bridge that they can't get anymore unless they get one used. But the only reason I bring it up is because of this crazy thing. You want to show them that in the camera?
The whole thing about this is it looks exactly like a Spyder. It has, like a complete Spyder, but as you can see, you can just put the strings right in the back. And this is one without a locking device here.
Yeah.
But it has basically the same part of the saddle as the Killer does.
Mm-hmm.
The only difference is a different ID back here. We decided not to screw in a screw back here,
right,
so that it would tighten and everything. So we took this member and this part, and this made it a much more inexpensive Spyder because it didn't have a double locking feature.
Regular old single locking bridge right there. Very, very rare.
Yeah, you're not going to see very many of these. This is not the main one, and it's the main one, of course, is the locking one. And although this one here was about $40-some less expensive. So that's the story on that particular one.
Now, one thing, that Spyder and the original Spyder and the reissue Spyder and even the Killer has, and this is the last time I'll bring up the Killer, they all work off of the same stud.
This is called a knife stud. The knife goes right into that slot. It doesn't go above it, doesn't go below it. The whole idea of this was you could wear out one side of this knife stud, and then you could give it 4 more or at least 3 more turns, and you'd have a brand new knife. So it theoretically would last at least 3 times longer. Because this is a zinc frame of a Autosamic 6 or 7, I don't remember, we put a steel insert in right here, and that steel insert is held there by a very small 50 thousandths. You could actually replace that part and this part. And some of these have been out there, about 40 years almost?
Yeah, I think 1989 to be safe.
35, 40 years. Anyway, that's what the idea was here. And so we still had some frames here, and I just decided to reissue them.
Other than the logo being completely absent, pretty much the same thing, right?
One of them has the logos on it, and the new ones do not. And the only reason for that is that those were made out of steel in a different process, and these new ones are all milled out of steel.
I just want to say that there are a lot of times when we will be told, oh, these are replaceable knife edges. One of the bridges that I really, really like is a Zamic piece, Zamic body with steel knife edges. And I'm sure they're hardened. As you told me, one side has to be hardened, but you don't want them both hardened because then things will start to chip.
Well, you harden both pieces the same amount. One eventually can chip the other.
Thing is, with these other Zamic bodies that have the quote-unquote replaceable knife edges, it's not like you can loosen up a bolt and slide the thing out and slide another one in. They're in there, and the only way that I've ever heard anybody have one removed with any success is to heat the thing up.
You're talking about the competitors, right?
I'm talking about competitors.
Yeah, let's make sure, because ours, all you got to do is loosen up the Allen screw in the back.
And it just pops right out.
It may be stuck after years. All you got to do is give it a tap.
Most of the parts for these things we have in stock still,
yes,
right?
All except the frame. We're out of the frame.
We plated the rest of the frames, and honestly, people, when they're gone, they're gone. If you want one,
we have 187 of them, and that's it.
4 left-handed ones?
4 left-handed.
Okay, so we haven't sold any lefties yet. Those 4 are what we have for fulcrums until we retool sometime in the future for the Steeler.
I don't plan to retool the Spyder. We pretty well used up that tool when we made them all. And so we'd have to make new tooling, and the die-cast tooling for that with all the pulls on it and everything would run us here in this United States somewhere between, I don't know, $50,000 and $60,000 to make it.
I think I would much rather that we invest in new tooling to where we could maybe make a 7, 8, 9, 10 string Steeler.
Well, all we need is the orders. So if anybody wants to order a couple hundred of those, we'll go ahead and do it. The processes are so different because we own a machine shop. So as a result, machine parts cost more. They use different substrates. We can make about anything in a machine shop. But when you get down to die casting, we don't do that. And so it takes special tool people that know how to do that. And it's expensive because it's sophisticated.
There were some options with the Spyder that not a lot of people are aware of. In fact, I want to give a special shout out to Kevin Hassemeyer, who runs a fan group for the Fender HM Strat. Kevin is a retired machinist. When he was just kind of looking into how to fix his favorite bridge and trying to find some parts, he discovered that there were intonation screws that his didn't have. So he came up with his own little method of drilling, tapping, and dyeing them. And because he is a master machinist that is retired with those tools, he was able to do it.
He probably had $50 in every hole he drilled. The time you tap it, the time you set up the tooling, and all the fixturing and everything it takes. I'm exaggerating, of course, but that takes time, takes money. When I originally sold them, there was only $7.30 difference between the one that had riser screws and the ones that didn't. As an OEM is concerned, they will just go with what their radius is. You may need to change that radius if you chose to do so. So we did come out with adjustment radius. So I think you'd find those on the Peavey guitars.
I hadn't even gotten to the radius screws yet. I was still talking about the intonation screws. But yes, believe it or not, Peavey would spend the money on the Killer, the Spyder, all kinds of different things. I mean, they even had a bass whammy back in the 80s on one of their production basses. So if you want a really, really cool old vintage Kahler piece, like maybe you want an old Killer or something like that, go snatch up a Peavey before the prices go way, way up. That old Peavey stuff from my era when I was a kid, it's just really good.
Well, we have to give a shout out not only to Hartley Peavey, and I always thank him very much. He was a good friend, but also Michael Powers, and he was in charge of guitars. We really worked closely with them to get what they wanted. Now, Fender really didn't have to because they already knew they had a little different radius that Peavey that Michael wanted to use.
And actually, I am going to be installing one of these new Spyders on a classic old Peavey. I have it right here. That is a Peavey Tracer, and it used to have a black bridge on it, but man, it just kind of disappeared into this really, really dark kind of black gold paint job.
I think that's pretty.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man. That gold really pops. I'm going to put some gold knobs on it, too. I will be showing you guys how to set this up, including an auto-latch video, which will include both the Spyder and the Steeler. This is an important thing for all you Spyder users. This one right here is a classic Spyder. And as we can see right here, this is auto-latch compatible. Every single Spyder. It's set up right there for that indexer to fit right in. And then you need the arm module. But if you have an old Spyder and you're like, I don't really want to upgrade, I don't really want a new bridge, but what's this auto-latch thing? I wonder if my Spyder can do that. The answer is yes. And we do sell a kit for that.
Yes, we do. You will index your bridge to the exact in tuneness you want, and then you move this into the slot. You can see the little notch right there. Once you move that into the vicinity of the slot, and when you get it there, you can pull the lever down. Whenever this indexer is activated by the arm, it just flips right into that slot and holds it.
The entire auto-latch mechanism it was insanely complicated to design, insanely complicated to manufacture. It's not exactly the easiest thing to install, but it was difficult all that way so that it would be very, very simple to use.
We're looking forward to you to get the video out. And I think you make it look pretty simple. I've seen you work with it, and I think it'll be good.
The instructions that we're still shipping with the auto-latch right now were written by Dave Petchalot, who is an incredibly brilliant guy, but he is he wanted to make sure that you knew absolutely everything about everything, and it might be a little confusing. Whereas when I do a video, I'm going to run it through the rock and roll filter so that it's nice and easy.
I'd just like to say Petchalot did a great job for the time. Remember, he's an engineering mind, and he got every detail down there anybody need to know. You know, seeing is believing, and they've got to see a video of what's going on.
Oh, absolutely.
And then you can go through the real talking points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You'll probably have about 8 major talking points. You'll watch that and you'll know what to do.
And the beauty of video is that you can always pause and back up, and that's never been easier than it is right now. So with the video for the install of the auto-latch, it should be really, really, really easy. We went through great expense to create this facility right here to where if we need to add anything and make something supplemental, we certainly will. If we don't do a good job, then you'll vote us out by not buying anything.
Oh, we're going to do a good job.
Yeah, I just want to say one last thing about this auto-latch because I really, really, really love it, and I really, really, really didn't expect to. I don't say that because I didn't think it would be a good product. I actually bought an auto-latch and had one in a box for probably about 2-3 years.
I'd like to point out, too, that you're going to do the a video when you put them into the Steeler. The Steeler is the new bridge of the future, as yes. I see it. Zamek is good for what you want to do. You can do all kinds of different shapes and things look beautiful that way. Within a machine shop, things may not look as aesthetic or as beautiful, but you'll have to listen to the sound, and then you figure that out.
I actually had somebody ask me if we were gonna, hey, are you gonna clean up those marks? And it was like, what, you mean the tooling marks? No. Well, it doesn't look very good. And it's like, but it performs amazingly. You know, if you're comparing it to your cast piece, yeah, maybe it won't be as pretty, but guess what? It'll be around after you've gone through 10 of those cast pieces.
Can always tell if something is milled or machined because you're going to see some cutter marks somewhere. If you want to know if it has been die injected with zinc, you should be able to see the ejection marks.
If you can see circles on the bottom of your plate, it was die cast. That's pretty much it for the Spyder. And I just want to reiterate one more time, don't dawdle. If you want one, once they're gone, they're gone. That's it. Never, ever, ever to be made again. Maybe if you're lucky and you really want those intonation screws, you can get a hold of Kevin Hassmeyer through the Facebook HM Strat Lovers page. That would be between you and him. It is completely an aftermarket tech thing, and we don't take any responsibility. However, I do know Kevin, and I do know that he has some talent, so I have no problem saying that Kevin is a talented guy that's pretty smart. Supplies are limited for the left-handers, and Well, actually, there is one last thing. Now, the Spyder does have a slightly different feel to it than, say, a Steeler or a Killer or something like that. For the longest time, I thought it was because of the stud. But it's actually, we're just a little different, just different enough with the drive.
All I got to say that, damn, it has a different feel. Everybody has a different feel,
right?
The way they play it. And I might say some people don't want to make complete gymnastics out of the bridge.
That
other people do. Some people, you can't pull up on it because it isn't near to do so. All I can say is it's a floating bridge. It goes both ways.
Yeah.
And, well, that's it. And God only knows we got about over 100,000 of those out there. All I can say is if we can help any of those people that have one with different parts, that includes fine tuners as well. We do have those in stock. So,
are these fine tuners retrofittable onto the old ones?
Yes, they are. We did increase the size of the top of the fine tuner,
right?
With the knurled part, it's just a little bit bigger. That one is, and it has a dome on it.
Right.
Where the original ones did not have a dome on it. They were smaller and they look like this.
Yeah.
Now we have the smaller tuner just exactly like this one here as well in stock. So if you have the one with the small dome and you like that, well, we have that one also.
In closing, I just want to say this. I absolutely love to play my HM Strat with the Spyder on it. I call it my time machine. Because when I start playing that thing, it takes me right back to being 19 years old in 1989, and it just makes me happy. It just puts a smile on my face. It makes me feel good. The Spyder itself, slightly stiffer feel. I think that's a good thing, though, because there are a lot of people out there that, man, if they even just look at a Floyd Rose without holding their breath, the thing just goes wiggling crazy and out of tune and things like that. And when I say Floyd Rose, that's a catch-all term for Ibanez, Edge, Jackson, JT6, Kahler Steeler, go to 1996T, all of them. But you know what? At the end of the day, you can dive bomb, you can pull up, you can flutter, you can do anything with the Spyder, you can do anything else with. It's just a little stiffer.
Personally, some people like it stiffer.
I like it. That's what she said. Well,
whatever that was, I don't know. The important thing is that we have parts for it. Unless you want to replace the whole bridge,
yes.
We're working on a replacement deal at the moment, where you can send the old one in and we'll send you a new one. You can definitely go to the website. That's KahlerUSA.com. I don't want to sound like a used car hot rod here salesman.
Right.
But we will be out of them. However, we will have probably about 75 to 90% of the parts.
We have to sell these things in order to keep making them, to sell more of them, to keep making them so that people have a choice.
All I can say to that is you're definitely putting American people to work, and that's the most sickening thing I see is the homeless out here and the begging that goes on the street corners. I mean, oh my God, many of those people, if they could find a job, they would actually work a job. And we wanted to get some kind of a program here in Las Vegas that would be meaningful, and we're trying to find some other folks in the communications to get behind us on it. So we got a lot coming our way in regards to that.
You know what? Let's wrap it up then.
Okay.
So until next time, I'm Eddie Kernan.
And I'm Gary Kahler.
And we'll see you next week.